18,000, 12,000, 11,000, 10,000, 5,000, 3.5 thousand, and 500. These numbers are not random. Ask someone working in a white collar job right now. These numbers represent the total number of layoffs that have happened in top tech companies since the start of 2023. Amazon, Google, Meta, the parent company of Facebook. All big tech giants have made job cuts, blaming the current economic condition and an impending recession. But what led to this mess? An industry which was booming and handing out huge salaries as recently as 6 months ago is suddenly on its knees.
From the headquarters of Amazon to the offices of Microsoft, for tech workers, 2023 is off to a rocky start.
Every technology company that we have heard of, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's DocuSign, whether it's Shopify in Canada, they're all, it's the same story.
That story is one of a sector that expanded too far, too fast. But as higher interest rates cool demand, companies have been forced to scale back.
I discussed this topic with Mukta to figure out why this is happening and what we might expect in future. I am Ankur Sharma and you are listening to The News Park.
Hey Ankur, how are you?
I'm doing good. As good as anyone can be in the current world we are living in.
Yeah, to be honest, same here. The whole recession and layoff situation has definitely brought the whole excitement for 2023 down. I mean, we were just 2 weeks ago celebrating New Year, hoping to have a great start with fresh ideas, and then just in a week, everything changed.
That's true. We are living in a weird time. I wouldn't say unique, but weird for sure. We have seen something similar in the past, but this time it's a little different. Just a tiny bit.
Yeah, recession happened in 2008, 2020. But what is different about this time? And how did it all begin?
Well, 2008 recession was because of financial and housing crisis.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
And 2020 was because of COVID-19 pandemic, which essentially locked us all inside, which had a huge economic effect.
Correct. And what about now?
This time, it's kind of a byproduct of COVID-19.
This recession is a byproduct of COVID-19. Why do you say that?
So, the COVID-19 pandemic is almost gone. People are going out, meeting with friends and family. The 2 long years which restricted basically everything is now just a bad memory. But one thing that followed this post-pandemic world is economics uncertainty. Rising interest rates almost everywhere, to tackle inflation of course, is having drastic effects for the common man.
Yeah, that's true. It's everywhere. People are struggling to even get hold of their basic needs, like milk, bread, the gas for cars.
Correct. The annual inflation rate for the United States is 6.5% for the 12 months ended December 2022, after rising 7.1% previously. This is according to the US Labor Department data published on January 12th. Canada is not doing good either, standing at 6.8%. The central banks are trying their best to control inflation by raising interest rates.
But what does this have to do with the layoffs we are seeing right now? I understand that central banks are doing that to control inflation, but can you please explain me how is this all connected?
Well, bringing down inflation is not the only outcome of raising interest rates. We can look into the past for reference. The other thing that we might be heading into is a recession.
Well, on this first business day of 2023, there are some dire predictions on where the world economy is going. The International Monetary Fund is warning that up to 1/3 of the global economy is in danger of an outright recession this year.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean, in terms of the white-collar job layoffs, how is this all connected?
When COVID-19 hit, everyone was stuck inside. Industries like tourism, travel, and service took a huge hit. People lost their jobs, and there was nothing they could do. But one industry that boomed was tech industry.
And why is that?
Work from home.
Oh, yes.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Everyone was inside, hooked onto their phones and laptops. So basically, there was a huge surge in IT products. You want to do work from home? Use Zoom. You want to be entertained? Watch Netflix. You want to talk to your friends or family? Use FaceTime or WhatsApp. You want to do freelancing or be an influencer? Use Instagram or TikTok. All these big companies suddenly were seeing huge growth.
Were there enough people working for these companies to handle this growth?
Exactly, that's the whole point. There were not enough people to work for them.
So what did they do then?
They hired. They hired even more, and they hired even more.
So basically, just because they were seeing the growth right after COVID, they thought that this growth is going to sustain in the coming time. So they felt they needed more people. Is that so?
Yep, and that's why everyone wanted to be an IT professional back then. These companies were paying huge salaries, 6-figure salaries to college passouts, and around millions worth of shares for seniors.
Wow, anyone with those essential skills would be so much in demand. But wait, I'm guessing this growth did not sustain, right?
It did not.
So now we are seeing these layoffs because of that?
Right.
But is that the only factor?
One of the factors. There are a lot of contributing factors which brought us here.
And what are those?
Well, apart from the fact that the COVID-19 driven growth was declining, there is a war going on in Europe. That's one of them. And the US dollar is becoming stronger, which reduces the profit margin for these companies. With increasing interest rates, these companies have to pay more for stuff. So basically, what ends up happening is that these companies stop investing in products or projects which are not giving them new profits or new customers immediately, which results in laying off of employees working on these projects or products.
So these are the big companies we're talking about. Google, Amazon, Meta. They have been around for decades. I understand that no one can predict what will happen in the future, but they could have anticipated something like that. The numbers that you mentioned earlier are not just numbers. These are thousands of families being affected, right?
I agree, but I don't have a definitive answer for that as to why did they not anticipate this, if I may say so. There is one exception for now though.
Oh really? What exception?
Apple.
You are moving the entire market here. Walk us through what's actually happening within Apple right now.
So as Apple prepares for 2023, the company is going to reduce hiring and spending growth for some teams. This is in response to the obvious looming recession that people are worried about, an economic downturn. So the company is taking a more cautious tone in preparation for that. Now, of course, this is not company-wide. Apple has more cash than just about anyone on hand, so they will be able to sustain any issues coming from this recession in all likelihood, or this looming recession, I should say, in all likelihood. And so they are doing what they need to do to prepare for that by not hiring as aggressively as they might do. Still, they have a pretty packed product roadmap for next year that includes its first mixed reality headset. That would be its first major new product since the Apple Watch, which was announced in 2014. So this is a big deal. All hands are still on deck for that, but they're taking a more cautious tone. We've seen Amazon and Tesla and Meta and the likes of all of Apple's peers have these more cautious approaches for next year and the end of this year, but of course Apple's is more limited to some teams rather than company-wide, and it does not appear that Apple has any layoffs planned in the near term either.
Yeah, I heard that. Apple has not laid off any employees yet.
Correct. The reason being they did not overhire, to be honest. If we look at the employee number growth for these companies, we can see that Apple did not hire like other tech companies. So let's discuss employee count change in last 3 years. Amazon positive 100%, Facebook 94%, Google 57%, and Apple 20%. They were conservative in their process and it looks like it paid off for them.
That's a good decision on their part for sure. But there are other factors you mentioned, like war in Ukraine or a stronger US dollar. These factors are affecting Apple as well. So, what's actually saving them?
From what I've read, they kept things lean and efficient. What is also interesting is that Apple is the only company whose CEO has taken a pay cut among big tech. Tim Cook himself requested the adjustment, and in 2023, his compensation will be cut by more than 40%.
Wow, this is a perfect example of leadership that goes beyond just saying, you take responsibility. I think Tim Cook might not be a visionary like Steve Jobs, but he's for sure one of the best managers in the world.
Yep, it surely looks like it, given the current scenario, of course.
Have you interacted with anyone affected with these layoffs?
I do have some friends who work in these companies, and although luckily they were not affected, but some of their colleagues got sacked. It's sad that this happened, and as you said earlier, it's not just thousands of employees, it's thousands of families.
That's true, it's definitely difficult, and especially for foreign workers who are on work visa. Because if a foreign worker on a work visa loses their job, they may also lose their ability to legally stay in the country. It might be hard to find new employment, as they may not be able to legally work for another employer.
Correct. And from what I read about immigration rules in the US, the laid off employees who are on work visa have just 60 days to either find a new job or go back to their home country. And we should remember that some of these people have lived in North America almost all their lives. It's their home.
And it's sad that their life is tied to the visa. They do not have the same rights or protections as citizens or permanent residents, which just makes it harder for them to contest a layoff or find alternate employment. They may even face additional barriers due to language, culture, and lack of network in a foreign country.
Yep. So I just want to tell our listeners to check on their friends who work in tech. Even though they might not have lost their job, it is definitely a stressful period for them, and a little empathy can go a long way.
I agree. Well said. I know it is difficult to say exactly when the recession will end, but experts might be closely monitoring these indicators. So, do you think there is any end in sight? I mean, I know no one has a crystal ball, but this should end in some time, right?
Yeah, hopefully soon, but no one has a concrete answer to that. Companies are going to share their quarterly results soon, and depending upon that, things are going to be decided. It's not ideal, but that's how it's going to work.
I know for sure that recovery will be gradual and uneven. Certain sectors and regions may recover faster than others. The most important thing, I believe, is to have patience, stay informed, and be prepared for the changes to come. I just hope that this dark period in our life ends soon. Honestly, it's okay to not be growing in your job for the time being, but at least you get to keep it.
I agree.
Thanks, Ankur, for discussing this topic, and I hope our listeners got some insight into what is happening around the world.
For sure. Recession is not something new. It happens almost every decade. But what can change is the way we deal with it. It is not just one person who can make that decision, but a little introspection in the past wouldn't hurt anyone. With the recent layoffs and impending recession, there might be other industries which might see similar trends soon. Who is to blame for this? COVID? Wall Street? CEOs? Or fate? You decide. Thank you for listening. See you next time.